The toughest part about this expansion question continues to be where does the Pac-12 go? Because with the news overnight, that again, if you've listened to the show or watched the show for any amount of time, we told you several weeks ago that Hawaii was the most likely eighth full member of the Mountain West. And what did we tell you was the number one issue for Hawaii in joining the Mountain West? They did not want to pay for other people to travel to Hawaii to play not just football, because I don't know how many people know this, and we've talked about this on the show. Hawaii pays travel a stipend. They pay a percentage of the travel for the teams who come to Hawaii to compete in all of their sports, because it is expensive to fly from Boise, Idaho to Honolulu. It's expensive. So Hawaii offers a travel stipend to those teams that come to them. Well, as part of their agreement to join the Mountain West as a full share partner, meaning every sport, they no longer have to pay travel stipends to Mountain West members to come to Hawaii. So obviously this is a win for Hawaii. They now can take all of their sports, have them in one conference in the Mountain West, and they don't have to pay anybody from any conference to come to Oahu to play. This is a win for Hawaii across the board, but it's also, in my opinion, a win for the Mountain West across the board, because the Mountain West had to get to that eighth team. It applies significant pressure to the Pac-12, who is currently trying to get an agreement in principle for their media rights. And as we told you last week, we are hearing significant movement is being made in that direction by the Pac-12, but they are not going to be able to put pen to paper and finalize a TV deal before they go and add membership. So for the Pac-12, they're in this really awkward position of the chicken or the egg, right? Do we add members in hopes of getting a TV deal, or do we try and get the framework of a TV deal in hopes of adding membership? It's really a difficult position for the Pac-12 to be in. And when we talk about Pac-12 expansion, it is the only question. Can you get new membership without a TV deal in place? And can you get a TV deal without new members in place? It is really a very, I don't know if impossible is the right word, but it is a very difficult proposition to navigate if you are the Pac-12. And what now just happened with the Mountain West makes that even more difficult, because it takes a lot of the pressure that was on the Mountain West. It lifts that pressure now. And now they are in, how do we get to 10 members, 10 full members, before the Pac-12 can even get to 8, 9, 10. So, Jake, it feels like to me that this is a win across the board for the Mountain West.
Absolutely. I think the Mountain West has always been, in a great position to find their way back. And I think that, moving forward, now that you have 8 full share members, you're going to look to add 2 more football onlys to get to 10 members, if you will, and to find that balance in scheduling. And I think once you do that, you're golden. And I think that, with all due respect to Pac-12 fan, like, you wanted to tell us that the Mountain West is nowhere near as good as the Pac-12, and they're terrible, and nobody cares about all these brands you're adding, and they're awful. And I'm just going to keep saying it, man. The conversation isn't whether the Mountain West is better than you or worse than you. The conversation is, are you actually going to have a conference? Because without a proper media rights deal, it's going to be really hard to add anybody. And on top of that, I look at this for the Mountain West, and this takes all the drama out of that conference. Everybody can rest easy. They can feel that sense of relief that the conference is going to move forward, that we're in a good place, that we're progressing forward, and we can operate again. We're not having to ask the question, is the conference viable? Is the conference going to burn down, or is it going to work? And so I think we can't undersell the value of that, because the Pac-12 is still right in the middle of that. You're still right in the middle of, hey, are we going to be able to make it? Are we going to get a reasonable TV deal? Like, are we, that to me is a huge difference in the two situations. And I just think if you're in the Pac-12, or if you're one of our listeners, viewers, who is a hardcore Pac-12 supporter, you need to stop talking about the Mountain West now, because not only did they beat you to getting back to full viability, they're just in a different place now. They've already got a TV deal done. They've already got everything moving. They're past this sort of line in the sand of legitimacy. They're now on to just putting schedules together and stuff. You still have to get past that. Hey, we've got 8 full share members. We've got a TV deal. We're ready to go. And I think that's what people need to be focused on now.
Well, and I also think this gives the Mountain West the pathway that we've talked about, because now you can go to NIU in Toledo and say, hey, come play football in our conference, because they've got 8 full share members. They've got all kinds of flexibility. And I think NIU in Toledo is exactly where I would be going if I were the Mountain West. I think it makes all the sense in the world. It, without question, helps your league in a football perspective, which is what matters. Because don't forget, they just signed a huge new TV deal in the Mountain West. You have 8 full share members that start in 2026. Now you can go to NIU in Toledo and say, hey, come be on national TV in the Mountain West. Give yourself an opportunity to play for a spot in the college football playoff. And let's all go about our business of growing financially and in relevance. And let's become one of the best G5 conferences. That pathway is now clear and obvious, in my opinion, because I don't even know that there is, with UTEP in the conference, where else would you go here? I think you're going to NIU, and I think you're going to Toledo. And I know that everybody, again, crushed us when I said it a couple of weeks ago. I don't want Toledo baseball. I don't want NIU field hockey.
Right.
I want NIU and Toledo football. And if I were the Mountain West, I would offer NIU and Toledo, which I am told they have had extensive conversations about being football-only members. That's where I would go. That's what I would do. And if they do that, I think they are in a significantly better place than the Pac-12 is. And I think the Pac-12 has the opportunity, if they somehow can get a TV deal, and let's say it is the CW and Amazon Prime Sports, which we have heard repeatedly, if that is in fact the place that they go, and if those two entities will agree to make a deal without members in place, now you can go and you can compete with the AAC for their TV deal.
Right.
Now you can go to the Memphises of the world, who, again, Dr. Ed Scott, their athletic director, what did he say? He essentially said they lowballed us.
Yeah, it's a bad deal.
You can go back to Memphis and say, but we're putting you on Amazon Prime Sports and you're going to be on the CW. So Jimmy, the 3-star quarterback, who wants to make sure that his mom and his grandma can watch him on TV back in Florida instead of going to Memphis. Okay, well, your mom's an Amazon Prime member. Hey, the CW has an affiliate in 7 different cities in Florida.
Yeah.
Okay, now you can make the argument.
Yeah, and I think part of that conversation too, from Memphis's side, based on the Dr. Scott, comment, was that, hey, the total valuation of the deal we were being offered wasn't enough. Not just like, hey, like, is it Amazon and CW, or like, what are the distribution partners, but also, does it give us enough money to afford the travel for Olympic sports? And because he was very bullish on that, like very adamant, like, hey, it was a bad deal for our Olympic sports. And so I think that's the other part of it for the AAC members, is it's got to it has to be good enough financially for them to justify it. It's not just the Amazon portion, but I do agree that the Amazon portion for recruits is highly effective. To be able to say that, and be able to sell someone on the fact that no matter where their family is, they can watch. I think that's a phenomenal talking point. But I will believe it when I see it, that the Pac-12 is able to get a TV deal north of, 10, 11 mil a year per school. I need to see that in writing.
I don't know how that happens.
Yeah.
I don't know how that happens. And again, I go back, because every Pac-12 person in our comment section, I encourage you to go and read it. They're all on this bandwagon of, we'll get the AAC. We'll get the AAC. And as we've reported exclusively on this show, every AAC member signed a letter of understanding, an agreement that is binding,
Mm-hmm.
keeping them in the AAC. And if that letter is binding, which means it is essentially an enforceable contract,
Right.
that says we are committing to the AAC for 2026 and beyond, who's willing to go to court and say, I want to get out of the AAC? Here's the letter I signed a month ago. Who's willing to go to court to fight that? And who's willing to pay the money to the attorneys and then the exit fees it's going to require to leave the AAC?
And again, on top of that, I also think as part of that decision, the willingness, because you have to go through that, who has the willingness to want to embrace the fact that you're traveling so much more? I think that's the other hard part is I truly in my heart of hearts believe that these people, these administrators of these schools sit around the table, talk about, damn, dude, a potential schedule would have us going out to the West Coast 5, 6 times. Yeah, we can make it work financially, but do we want to really embrace that? Is that what we want Memphis athletics to be known for? Is it you know what I mean? So it's yeah, you have this piece where someone going to Memphis, their grandma is going to be able to watch on Amazon Prime potentially if that were to happen. But are you going to go to Memphis knowing that that's your travel? Or would you rather go to a school up and down the East Coast where maybe the travel isn't as much and you can go home more often or whatever? I just think that there's a lot of opinion and emotion and feeling in it that is hard to quantify.
For how much money?
Yeah, for how much money? Exactly. So if it's only 10 or 11, that's
I don't
a
think
nice number.
I think you're going to be thrilled if you get 10 million per school. If you get 100 million a year, that would be remarkable. And I don't know how, if you're the Pac-12, you're going to pull that.
And I just don't know. I would agree. And I just don't know how 10 or 11, 10 mil, 100 million makes that worth it for a Memphis or, Tulane, or whoever.
Because it does not put you in a position to compete for the college football playoff.
Right.
That's the other part that you have to kind of come to terms with. And you wonder, what is the upside of joining that league? And right now, you're just sitting and waiting for their TV deal and their revenue, because that's the only thing that's gonna move the needle anywhere. Is, am I going to make more money, and are my students going to be healthier and more well provided for? Because you look at this letter, and I know that you guys don't want to hear this. I totally understand it, because you guys lose your mind every time I talk about this.
Right.
If you're a G5 school, can you afford to compete with Texas? Because look at this letter, and I'm calling it an SOS email. Chris Del Conte, the athletic director at Texas, sent out an email where he detailed the upcoming changes. NIL remunerations, paybacks. Institutions will be permitted to directly remunerate student athletes for use of their name, image, and likeness. For institutional purposes, up to the projected annual amount of $22 to $23 million. Okay.
So right there, we've got it in writing. That's the number.
As we've reported on this show, you're looking, and let's just go $23 million. If that were the only amount that you had to kick in, can Fresno State, Boise State, Memphis, South Florida, any G5 team,
San Diego State,
NIU, Toledo, UTEP, can any of them be like, yeah, let's kick in another $23 million to football, to basketball? Okay. Roster limits and scholarships. NCAA rules no longer will designate sport-by-sport scholarship limits. That means that you will not only pay athletes more money, like cutting them a check.
Yeah.
Now you're going to have to give out more scholarships. Oh, do tell. Is that not the only amount of those? Wait, there's more? Oh, that's right. The back payments. The NCAA Division I student athlete will compete from 26 to 21 and did not have, or 2016 to 2021 and did not have NIL ability due to previous rules for NIL back damages, the NCAA national office is set to pay nearly $3 billion.
But Monty, I thought the NCAA was its own body.
Well, somebody forgot to tell everyone across the country, apparently, that the NCAA is made up of its members, like Texas and all the G5s. Look at that bottom line. Texas athletics will receive an ongoing reduction in NCAA annual revenue of approximately $1.5 million per year for the next 10 years to cover our portion of these damages. That's interesting.
So wait, I just want to make sure I'm hearing this right for all the people in the back. The amount of money you're getting is going down, but your costs are going way up. Just want to make sure we're on the same page here.
So not only are you going to revenue share to $23 million, look at that last number. And you guys all told me I didn't know what I was talking about. When I told you just the new fees are going to push you close to $50 million extra and just to compete.
Better send those refunds.
The anticipated annual new NIL and scholarship benefits available to student athletes are expected to rise on a year-to-year basis, with the potential cost for additional scholarships estimated at $11.5 million. So $15 million, $11.5 million. So if you take the $15 million on a yearly amortized number, so $11.5 million and $1.5 million is $13 million. If you take that and add it to the $23 million, you're at $36 million. And that's just money that you are now having to put out in addition. And I'd remind you that $1.5 million is a reduction in disbursement. You're getting $1.5 million less. And that's going to come out of your basketball distributions. How you like that, San Diego State? So the NCAA is going to distribute $1.5 million less, and they're going to take it out of your tournament shares.
So when everyone said, "Hey, you guys are idiots. You don't know what you're talking about with the Big 12."
Why would Gonzaga
own division?
Why would Gonzaga not join the Big 12, Marty?
Oh, I know why. Because Gonzaga doesn't play football, so they're paying all of this out of basketball, which means they need to win every single year, and they need to be in the tournament every single year. And ideally, they'd win like 2, 3, 4 games in the tournament every single year.
So you have this $36 million number. And now you're looking at, I know, the COVID-19 dark period. Because look at how Chris Del Conte just kind of tosses in the pandemic.
Right.
Texas athletics, to maintain its status as a gold standard bearer within NCAA athletics, similar to what we did during COVID-19 pandemic, where we asked you for a bunch of money.
The coronavirus.
Along the way, the Longhorn Foundation will strive to set fundraising and membership milestones in our continued effort towards positively impacting the lives of UT student athletes.
Okay, so let's translate that into common man verbiage. Hey, we're gonna put out a new number in the coming days.
Yep.
Of what we have to have from a donation standpoint to maintain our stature in collegiate athletics. So, hey, we've got our sponsorship dollars, ticket sales. We've got all these things that are making us money inside the football program. But then that money there is not going to be enough to cover the gap. So now your donations in combination with this will put the pie together. So that donation piece is going to go up.
So if you're the G5, if you're Hawaii, and you've got to up your scholarship limits, you're going to travel more, and you're going to travel to further destinations. So your travel cost is going up. You've got to add this $36 million. You've got to add the human infrastructure. You've got to add all of this money. It's pushing $50 million a year just to take a snap.
Mm-hmm.
That's not hot dogs. That's not more malasadas you got to make and bake and sell at home games.
Yeah.
That's just $50 million to say, I don't know. Yeah, what, do we want to compete? That's $50 million. And then you add human cost, and then you add books, and then you add iPads, and then you add new equipment, and then you add one of the main costs, travel infrastructure. Because you got to have more buses. And you've got to have, if you are Hawaii, you can't truck your football equipment like everybody else does. You have to. So can Hawaii really compete in a power level?
Nope.
If the Super League happens, which it will. So when I ask you and I say, hey, can Boise State really compete with, forget Ohio State, can they compete with Texas? And the answer is no, they cannot. So in the eyes of what is the Mountain West doing and what is the Pac-12 doing, what I can tell you they're not doing is competing for national championships in football in the college football playoff. Because how many of their members can afford that?
Yeah, none.
And then I go back to, well, is Sac State really an option? Can Sacramento State right now push in $50 million more annually and then build new facilities and training table money? It's impossible. It's not possible.
Yeah.
It's not possible. And I feel like this email, and I know I've said this a lot. This note from Chris Del Conte to his guys cutting him checks, his donors, his supporters. This is the canary in the coal mine if you're the G5.
Yeah, because,
this is the shot over the bow.
That email, if you cut through all the numbers and everything, is essentially just a plea for go find more donors. Go find more money. We're going to need it.
That's all this is. And you look at the numbers. I mean, we're looking at just a baseline, in my opinion, of $50 million.
Yeah.
And it is scary as hell.
So when we talk about private money, that's where private money comes in. That's where, hey,
man,
this settlement necessitates and expedites the Super League. And that's why, again, I guess we're doing the I told you so segment, but that's why, when people were like, oh, the Super League's dead, no, it wasn't ever going to be dead, because the Super League the Super League wasn't born just because people thought it was cool.
No.
The Super League was born out of necessity for more money to come in so these schools can pay their rent, essentially. And that's what people don't want to talk about. People want to sit here and be like, oh, well, I'm a Texas fan. I'm a V fan. I'm a Bama fan, Georgia fan. I'm a big boy college football program fan. We'll be fine. And it's like, no, dude, actually, you won't be fine. Like, the biggest of the big are having to ask donors for more money and are having to figure out, hey, how can we essentially double our revenue to make it feel like it does now? Because that's what this is. You're the best of the best here are going to essentially double their revenue and make it so that they make these fees and these, like, again, their rent, if you will, they make that cost feel smaller because they're making so much more. That's what this game is about. It's not about, hey, are we going to struggle to pay this stuff? No, they're not going to struggle because they're going to push the boundary so much with how much revenue they're going to bring into this thing.
Yes.
That I think the only question they're going to have is, hey, okay, we got all this money. How much do we get to keep?
And I just want to put this up here for you. This is Texas's finances. This is their total operating revenue by sport. Let that sink in Boise. Let this sink in any other G5 university. And if you want to pick one, I mean, knock yourself out and pick one. So if you want to go to I don't know. Like NIU is one that obviously comes to mind. Let's talk about NIU versus Texas. And can NIU, do you really believe that NIU, where you have football in 2023, their total operating revenue of $182 million
At Texas.
at Texas, do you believe that NIU can compete with Texas when they're at $2,700,000? And Texas is out asking for handouts, sending out their their Folger family athletic director, Chris Conte. Why do I say that? Because they're getting paid to have him sponsored. Do you really believe that in this kind of world where you have this kind of disparity, this is Northern Illinois' number right here. Do you really believe that they can compete? Well, no, Monty, but are you telling me that Northern Illinois is blessed state?
Do you believe?
They have that Smurf turf up there, boy. Okay.
Homies, there's going to be no Monties on this one. I'm just telling you right now.
Okay. What do you got before I change the graphic? Wait, here's Texas's revenue again for 2023.
192 million, right?
What do you guys believe? No, 182.9 million on football.
Okay, 182.
Somebody take a wild guess. Just put a number in your head.
15 is my guess. 15.
What do you think Boise State's football operating revenue is?
Less than 20.
I'm going to say it's more than that. Well, I know it's more than that. How about 28,500,000? The supposed juggernaut that is saving the Pac-12.
Right.
You're telling me, okay, well, here's Texas, and they're $160 million in football revenue ahead of you. That's a lot of blue turf.
Dude.
I can do this all day long. Because the numbers, and again, I would just remind you, that's not even, friends, that's not even the total number of somebody like in Ohio State.
And remember, when Boise State is at 28 million, what are the numbers we just gave you in cost? That's going to be added should they choose to stay opted into this.
At a baseline, it's 36 million.
So the costs of this thing already eclipse your yearly annual revenue. You're not making that gap up.
No chance.
Like you're having a different conversation than Texas is or Ohio State is. Like Texas and Ohio State are like, all right, so we got to add these line items to our P&L. We're now going to lower our revenue to this number, for this year. How do we get that money back? Well, you get it back through more sponsorship and private money. That's how.
Let me show you Ohio State's pie of revenue.
Jesus.
This is Ohio State's 2022-2023 number. The last number available, $279 million. That's how they make their money right there, friends. You're looking at it. Okay. Again, pick a G5. Jake, what's a G5 that you San Diego State? Like, what's a G5 that
Memphis?
You want to look at Memphis. Let's pull up Memphis. Is right there. Let's pull up Memphis. Let's talk about Memphis's numbers.
This school that, the Pac-12 is going to poach, this school that has no problem paying for travel, no problem,
Let's just look at their pie chart at Memphis. Take a long look at these numbers at Ohio State.
So okay. 279 mil.
279.5. That's $100 million. Here's Memphis. Look at their tickets. Look at the stack. Direct institutional support is for Ohio State. It's $115,000. For Memphis, it's $15,321,000. Your subsidy. What that means is here's $15.3 million to play sports. Do you understand that? Like, look at the total revenue at Memphis, $64.3 million. You're $210 million behind Ohio State.
And look at Look at the NCAA distribution line. Remember, that number goes down by 1.5 million.
Here's Memphis's NCAA distribution.
So right there,
you're at $900,000.
That's a problem, dude.
This I'm using this not to be like, oh, hey, I told you so. I'm trying to illustrate to you hyenas that we're not having a fair level conversation.
Yeah. But Monty, it's Boise State.
Who can't compete with Ohio State? Who can't compete with, pick your poison. You can't compete with it. And I just want people to understand that you're going to spend at a minimum $200 million on athletics. At a minimum, your expense will be $200 million.
Okay, well, what is a just humor? What is like a mid-level Big 12 team making right now? Like, what is, Tech, or like, not the best team in the Big 12, but just like,
let's look at Texas Tech. Tech.
So we looked at the low end. What's the middle? I think this is a really interesting.
So like a total revenue number.
Yeah. But what is
from a team that has not been competitive?
Yeah.
In football or basketball at the top of the conference in several years.
And remember, the is at 279.5. Just keep that in mind.
Here's Ohio State's number.
Right.
This is Ohio State's total revenue. Here's Texas Tech. $146.8 million. And notice again, NCAA distribution is 1.4 million.
So you can just delete that line off the chart.
That's gone.
See ya.
Direct institutional support, 5.7 million. Okay. Direct institutional support, 115,000. But again, here's Texas Tech, a mid-level, middle of the pack Big 12 university.
Yeah.
How about Memphis?
So you see
Texas
the
Tech
tiers here.
Texas Tech,
Yeah.
not competing for championships. Memphis, $15.3 million in direct institutional support. $5 million. I'm telling, come on, man. Ticket sales, $18.2 million. Ticket sales, $8.7 million. They're $10 million better than you in ticket sales in Lubbock. This is why I'm trying to explain, folks. A middle of the table, Texas Tech in the Big 12, is dominating a G5. Arguably one of the better G5 programs.
Right.
Dominating. And there's no unwinding that watch. Yep. So when we talk about can they compete, man, I just don't see how you compete with that. I don't know how you compete with that.
You don't. You create your own thing for the
G5. Let's see. The Pac-12 has a substantial advantage in every metric used to establish media valuation, which explains why the top schools in the Mountain West agreed to join. John Wilner, 10-4. So I'm just asking again, and I understand who John Wilner is, and I understand that he very much supports them. But what I'm asking for is, what does that mean in practical, real dollar days? And we won't know until the Pac-12 gets a TV deal. But if my sources are right, and right now the top of the table is $10 million.
Yeah.
What does that mean? What is the practical application of which explains why the top schools in the Mountain West agreed to join? They agreed to join because they bought into the dream that is the Pac-12.
Yeah. And with all due respect, I love John Wilner's work. He does a great job. John Wilner's a Pac-12 guy.
He is.
Always has been, always will be.
He is.
So when you're reading John Wilner's stuff, you got to understand the perspective he's writing from.
He is of the back of the envelope calculation interview.
Yeah. I mean,
where George Kliavkoff talked about getting $50 million
back of the envelope calculations
per year per school. And they never checked him or asked a follow-up question to it. So
I'm not sure that I agree with the assertion that the Pac-12 has a substantial advantage in every metric. If they had a substantial advantage in every metric, they'd already have a TV deal. It already would be done, and you'd already be on to adding either a C membership or like going to court and do that or whatever it was going to be.
And again, we're talking about all of this taking effect in 2026.
Yeah.
We're not talking about next season. So I think the timeline matters. Jay McClanahan, you need to make $100 million a year to play the game. Just in football.
Yeah.
Because I do think your baseline, I think it's more and more and more. Now that we know the scholarship limits went way up, you're paying 34 baseball scholarships.
Which is a lot. That's a lot.
You're paying 15 full share scholarships on basketball. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't have a good understanding of the scholarship thing, like you can be half share, quarter share. Like there's a lot of negotiating
when
that
I
happens.
was considering college, I was offered a 25% scholarship to play baseball at Illinois. Could not afford it. And I had a great radio job at the time. But that's how baseball scholarships work. I can tell you, and I think I've told this story on the show before. I had a friend of mine, I sold cars with him way back in the day. He was a cheerleader at Notre Dame. And he got some paltry amount of money. I mean, a tiny amount of money. And had to pay the rest. But he was a cheerleader, and he got, I don't remember what the number was now, but he got a tiny amount of money on scholarship because he was on the Notre Dame cheer squad.
Yeah.
That's how money works. And every penny counts. And I think what you're going to see now is you're still going to have walk-ons on the baseball team. But I think you are going to see the days of walk-ons in football are over. And they've been over. Like BYU has all of their walk-ons have scholarships paid by NIL.
Right.
Nobody and I think it's the same thing at Utah. Nobody pays, no football player, nobody wearing a football jersey. Practice squad, walk on, nobody is paying for a scholarship or paying their tuition at Utah or BYU.
Yeah.
NIL covers most of that. So it just tells you how expensive it's getting. It really does. Scott of Greywater Watch. The middle of the pack power conference is what I want to look at. And how much money do you need to compete with the Big Ten and the SEC? Well, what's the biggest program in the SEC? Bama, Georgia. I mean, take your pick.
At Texas already.
Let's look at Alabama.
Yeah.
Okay, because Alabama in total revenue is a behemoth. And their total revenue number. What do you think? Just put a number in your head. Knowing that Texas Tech is at 146, knowing that Texas is at 279, what do you think? If you had to guess.
I mean, I'd put Bama somewhere in the, certainly not as high as the. I mean, the donor base at the is ridiculous, but maybe 2.25. You know,
how about 199 million, $913,000.
Yeah, see, that to me seems light.
And if you look at NCAA distribution, 3.2 million, because they haven't been great in basketball, right?
So that's going to get chopped in half.
Direct institutional support, 6.2 million. But look at their media rights number, $55.6 million. Media rights, zero. Media rights. Look at media rights on, Texas Tech, 25.6 million. Do you guys see how different each of these universities are? And you look at Alabama and you see ticket sales, $41.8 million. Maybe having a massive 100,000 seat stadium matters. Donations, $48.9 million.
See, but I think that line item of licensing and ads is where you're going to see a lot of growth.
I agree.
That has. I mean,
I would agree.
What was that? 16 million, I think, for Bama, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
$16.2 million.
That's got to be 30, 40 mil a year. That's got to be. You got to bump that thing
It's got to go
way
up. It's got to go up. I totally agree with that. And it is.
I mean, the fact that Bama's under 200 is insane to me. I mean, I understand that maybe from a marketing standpoint, and some other institutions are better at it, but Bama's been dominant in football for a decade now, and you're still under 200.
You cannot afford to compete because you can't afford to join the Super League.
Yeah.
Just based on these numbers. And that's why I'm trying to paint this picture that I don't mean to pile on top of people. I'm not trying to show you guys how, and Boise fan gets uppity about this. I'm not trying to show you how small Boise is. I'm not telling you that. What I'm telling you is financially, it's really difficult to compete. When you have schools like Alabama making $200 million and you have schools like Texas making $279 million. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's terrifying if you are a G5 right now, because I don't think you can compete. All right. Hour number 2 of the Monty Show, presented by our friends at Prize Picks. Let's talk about Prize Picks.
Uh-huh.
And I want to talk about Prize Picks because, well, frankly, I won on Prize Picks again. I'm on a heater. Monty's back on a heater, bruh.
Yeah.
I told you yesterday, these were my picks. James Cook did not play.
First time in, I think they said 3 years or something.
But it didn't hurt me because I had Josh Allen on a demon, which means it pays higher, for 1 rushing or receiving touchdown. He had 1. Aaron Rodgers to throw 1.5 touchdowns passing. He had 2. That paid me $65.
I think I've hit it every time.
Then in Major League Baseball, stupid Shohei Ohtani. I took, how close I was to $190 payout? I chose Ohtani over Juan Soto. And if I'd have taken Juan Soto, they were both 1.5 total bases.
Oh, Juan Soto went deep last night.
Sean Manaea for 5 strikeouts, he had 6. Aaron Judge for 1.5 hits, runs, and RBIs, he had 2. It paid me $27.
Nice. See, that's the thing on Prize Picks, though. As long as you're making money, you're in a good place.
That's what I love about Prize Picks. Like why tens of millions of us know what I hope you know, which is Prize Picks is America's best daily fantasy platform. Download the Prize Picks app on your phone. Use the promo code Monty. You make a $5 deposit, they'll give you 50 more.
Yeah.
It is the single best daily fantasy promotion I've ever seen. All you have to do is download the app. Use the promo code Monty. Hook it up. Prize Picks, America's favorite daily fantasy platform. Get on board. The eye patch says, go Yankees. Real quick aside, how many people are watching the Major League Baseball playoffs?
Got to tell you, haven't been real thrilled with the CS series so far. Not really.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't like, oh man, dude. Dodgers Mets, like I was way more into Dodgers Padres. Dodgers Mets feels like the Dodgers are dispatching that team in 5 games.
Yeah, well, unfortunately not for the Dodgers because the Mets pounded them yesterday 7-3. Manaea was fantastic. Thank you for striking people out. I think that's going to be an incredibly competitive series. I think the Yankees showed up, and I know that it's guard ball, they call it in Cleveland. I think the Guardians don't have the offensive firepower, in my opinion, consistently enough. When Giancarlo Stanton is hitting home runs, the Yankees are unbeatable.
Yeah.
They're just impossible. And you look at that series and the way that it starts, you get Rodon last night, 6 innings, 3 hits, an earned run, 9 strikeouts.
Yeah.
Gives up the home run. And then you get Cobb for Cleveland, 2 2/3, 5 hits, 3 earned, 3 walks, 3 Ks. How are you going to compete with that when you have Stanton, going deep? You have Soto going deep. And you're shell shocked at that point because you give up 3 in the 3rd, another in the 4th, another in the 7th, and you get a run in the 6th and the 8th. You never were able to build offensive momentum. I think that series is going to be tough. And if you're going to get Luke Weaver and he's going to be the back end of the bullpen for the Yankees, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
The Guardians are going to have a lot of trouble in that series. And I don't know what it will take to turn that around, but you're going to have an offensive explosion.
And Luke Weaver as a closer's been nice. You know, he started for all those years.
Well, I think you wanted it to be Clay Holmes, but that clearly has not worked out. But isn't today a must-win for Cleveland?
Yes.
With Bybee going and Garrett Cole? This is a big moment for Garrett Cole.
Yeah. Do we get dominant Garrett Cole, or do we get, 5 innings, struggle bus Garrett Cole? Because he was dominant last time out.
But I don't know who your closer will be. Clay Holmes has 30 saves on the season, but it's been erratic.
Well, I think, Aaron Boone likes to use Clay Holmes as the stopper. Like, hey, it's the 5th inning, the 9th inning, the 6th inning. When I need outs, I'm going to go to him. So that's kind of been his change in role. And I think it's worked out so far. I mean, it's not ideal. I think Clay Holmes as a closer would be amazing, but it obviously just wasn't for him.
Would you hate a Mets-Yankees World Series?
No, I would not. I would prefer Dodgers-Yankees.
I think we're going to get a Mets because I don't believe Walker Buehler can bounce back in New York.
Yeah, that was a rough outing.
On Wednesday. He's got rocking a 10 ERA. So Mr. Preston says, go Mets. Chris C says, I haven't watched the MLB playoffs at all this year. I only watched regular season.
The DS round was incredible.
It was.